The sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a warm, golden light across the sprawling ranch. It was a scene straight out of a storybook, where every detail seemed to dance with life. The gentle breeze carried the sweet scent of wildflowers, and the soft rustle of leaves created a soothing melody. This was the kind of place that made you feel at peace, with nature wrapping around you like a cozy blanket. Vast fields stretched as far as the eye could see, blanketed in vibrant greens and dotted with colorful bursts of wildflowers. If you enjoy this video, please like the video and subscribe for more, and tell me where you are watching from today. I always find it awesome to see where all my viewers are watching from. Let's get back to the video. Cattle grazed lazily in the distance, their tails swishing against pesky flies. Barns, painted a bright red and weathered by time, stood proudly against the clear blue sky. In this idyllic setting, time seemed to slow down, allowing every creature to enjoy the beauty of the day. As morning light spilled over the land, it illuminated everything it touched. The rancher, a sturdy man with sun-kissed skin and a wide-brimmed hat, stepped outside his modest home. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the fresh air. There was something magical about mornings on the ranch. It was as if each dawn brought with it new possibilities. Today, however, felt different. A sense of anticipation filled the air. With each step he took towards the barn, he heard the sounds of life around him. Birds chirping cheerfully from their nests, a rooster announcing the start of the day, and the distant whinnies of horses in the paddock. The ranch was alive with energy, and he loved every moment of it. He paused for a second to admire the landscape. The way the sunlight danced on the grass gave him hope for whatever lay ahead. As he entered the barn, he greeted each animal with affection. The horses nickered softly, excited to see him. He ran his hands along their sleek coats, feeling their warmth and strength beneath his fingers. They were more than just animals to him. They were companions and partners in his daily life on the ranch. Each horse had its own personality, but none compared to his favorite, a spirited mare named Star. Star was bold and beautiful, always eager to gallop through the fields. The rancher often imagined how exhilarating it would be to ride her freely across open land, wind rushing through his hair. However, today's plans were different. He needed to check on the fences and make sure everything was secure after last night's storm. As he stepped outside again, he noticed something unusual at the edge of the property line. His heart raced as curiosity tugged at him. From afar, he caught sight of a magnificent stallion, tall and proud, standing alone in the grass. His coat shimmered like polished silver under the sun, and his mane flowed like a river behind him as he moved. The stallion's powerful limbs spoke of strength and freedom. The rancher watched intently, captivated by the stallion's grace. However, he couldn't shake off a feeling of unease creeping up his spine. Wild horses often roamed in these parts, but this one seemed particularly fearless. He could see that it was likely unbroken and untamed, which stirred both excitement and caution within him. With each stride this wild stallion took, it appeared to claim its territory, snorting and stamping its hooves as if daring anyone to approach. The rancher felt a surge of determination rise within him. He knew that wild horses could become loyal companions if given the chance. And he wanted to be that person for this magnificent beast. But first, he had to figure out how to approach it without causing alarm. He glanced back at Star in her paddock. She stood quietly watching him, sensing the change in his mood. With resolve set in his heart, he decided to make his way closer to the stallion. As he walked cautiously toward where the stallion stood tall and proud, he could hear nature's symphony around him. leaves rustling gently in the breeze and birds chirping overhead. The peaceful sounds surrounded him like an invisible shield against worries or doubts. He focused on keeping calm and steadying his breath. Today felt like it held promises of connection or confrontation. Suddenly, before he could take another step closer to the stallion, a soft sound broke through the air, like a whispering breeze carrying an unexpected note. Both the rancher and stallion froze in their tracks, curiosity taking over as they turned their attention towards this new sound. The rancher, whose name was Jack, had spent most of his life surrounded by the land he cherished. Every morning began with the same rhythm, rising before dawn, feeling the cool air against his skin, and stepping outside to greet the world. His hands, calloused from years of hard work, bore the marks of his dedication. Each scratch and scar told a story, a testament to the effort he exerted to maintain the ranch and care for its animals. Jack was a sturdy man in his 40s, with a weathered face that spoke of countless hours spent under the sun. His brown hair was tousled from sleep, and his bright blue eyes sparkled with passion and purpose. This was more than just a job for him. It was a way of life. He often found solace in simple tasks, like feeding the horses or repairing fences, taking pride in every small victory that came with the job. He had always felt an unbreakable bond with the animals on his ranch. Each one had its own distinct personality, and he loved getting to know them. His favorite horse was Star, a spirited mare who had been with him for years. She understood him in a way that humans sometimes could not. With her fiery spirit and gentle heart, she was not only a companion, but also a symbol of resilience. Jack's days were filled with caring for the livestock. He would check on the cattle grazing in the fields, mend any broken gates, and ensure that all the animals were fed and watered. In return, they offered him unwavering loyalty. They depended on him just as much as he depended on them for companionship and purpose. While many might view ranching as a solitary life, Jack found joy in this connection to nature and animals. He often marveled at how each creature played an important role, whether it was guarding against intruders or warming his heart with their playful antics. He believed that understanding them made his work more rewarding. As Jack walked toward the barn after noticing the wild stallion, he couldn't shake off feelings of adventure bubbling inside him. The stallion represented something raw and untamed, an echo of freedom that resonated deep within him. He admired how powerful and independent the creature looked, contrasting against his more domesticated horses. But it wasn't just excitement he felt. There was also respect, a recognition of the stallion's strength and will to survive on its own. Jack knew that wild horses could be challenging and difficult to tame. Yet he thought about how, given patience and kindness, they could develop strong bonds with humans too. He arrived at Star's paddock, ready to check on her as well. As always, she trotted over to him, nuzzling against his hand, her warm breath tickling his skin. He smiled softly, running his fingers through her mane. "You must have sensed something, girl," he said affectionately, glancing back at where the stallion stood at the edge of his property. Jack believed it was essential to approach situations with open-mindedness. He often found that surprising changes could lead to amazing opportunities. On this ranch, where he worked tirelessly day after day, everything felt intertwined. The land, the animals, and even unexpected encounters like this wild stallion. The anticipation on this day transformed into excitement as he envisioned potential scenarios where both he and the stallion could form an understanding. Perhaps today would mark a new chapter, not just for him, but also for that proud horse standing defiantly before him. As he prepared to approach the stallion more closely, Jack recalled stories of ranchers taming wild horses through patience and trust rather than fear or aggression. He had read countless books about techniques that respected the animal's spirit while building a connection based on mutual respect. Just then, as if sensing his thoughts, Star let out a soft whinny, looking toward the stallion as it grazed peacefully. For a moment, everything felt connected. Nature embraced Jack with its whispers, while hope stirred in his heart for what lay ahead. With every slow step closer to the wild stallion, Jack felt both curious and eager to learn more about it. He imagined all the lessons they could share, the wild spirit of a horse meeting the determination of a rancher grounded in love and care for animals. The possibilities stretched wide before him like an endless horizon filled with untamed adventures. But first things first, this stallion needed to feel safe before any bond could form. Just as he took a deep breath to gather his resolve, that soft sound washed over them again, a reminder of nature's presence. And at that moment, both man and beast turned their attention toward it with curiosity. As Jack stood at the edge of his ranch, his gaze fixed on the wild stallion, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe wash over him. The stallion was unlike any horse he had ever seen. With a coat that glimmered like polished silver in the sunlight, it exuded a powerful aura of freedom and strength. Every muscle in its body rippled as it moved gracefully across the grassy terrain. And the way it carried itself showed that it was in complete harmony with nature. The stallion's mane flowed behind him like a cascade of dark silk, billowing softly in the breeze. It was a striking contrast to its bright coat and gave the horse an almost ethereal quality. Jack marveled at how the stallion seemed to command the land, effortlessly taking in his surroundings as if they belonged to him alone. The rancher could see his strong legs digging confidently into the earth with each step as he grazed near the property line, showcasing both power and elegance. What made this stallion even more captivating was the fire in his deep brown eyes. They shimmered with intelligence and hunting instincts, exuding a sharp awareness for everything around him. To Jack, those eyes told stories of independence and survival, two qualities that resonated deeply within him. While his own horses relied on him for companionship and shelter, this magnificent beast answered only to the call of instinct deep within. Despite having spent years working with numerous horses, each with their own unique temperaments, Jack felt that none compared to this stallion's wild spirit. There was something electric about watching him, a kind of energy that sparked curiosity in Jack's heart. It prompted questions about what it must be like to live so freely, without the constraints placed on domesticated animals. Standing at the distance, Jack tried to observe without startling the stallion. He could see how the creature occasionally raised its head, arching its neck to sniff the air, alert to any potential threats. This majestic animal showcased a blend of beauty and primal power. He was wild and regal, unlike any creature that Jack had known before. His heart raced as he visualized the bond they might share if only he could earn the stallion's trust. But thoughts of excitement were also mixed with caution. Jack understood that wild horses could be unpredictable and challenging to approach without establishing ground rules of respect. He had witnessed many encounters between ranchers and wild horses go awry when fear or aggression were present rather than patience and empathy. He watched closely as the stallion moved around, observing his interactions with nature. The way he danced across meadows, leapt over obstacles, and challenged invisible foes just beyond the horizon. As Jack stepped back to gather his thoughts, he felt a deep resonance with this magnificent being. The stallion seemed both proud and wary. Every moment felt suspended in time, as if nature held its breath alongside them. Jack couldn't help but wonder what stories lay behind those dazzling eyes. Where he had been born, and how he had come to roam free on this land. And then there was that thrilling moment when their gazes locked. Jack felt an indescribable connection surge between them, as if they were two old friends rediscovering each other after years apart. Like clever puzzle pieces destined to fit together, there was so much more waiting between man and beast than simple differences in their lives. Yet deep inside, Jack acknowledged that earning the stallion's trust would take time and understanding. This beautiful creature symbolized freedom in every sense. He had survived through instinct alone. How would he respond if approached? Would he fear Jack's presence or sense kindness? With a newfound determination igniting within him, Jack continued to stand tall against the gentle breeze, recognizing this moment as pivotal, not just for himself, but for this wild stallion too. The willful spirit radiating from him became contagious, filling Jack's heart with hope for what lay ahead. Just then, that soft sound returned, a gentle rustle accompanied by a warm whisper of wind through nearby trees, reminding them both of their bond with nature. And at that moment, both man and stallion seemed to hold still in quiet anticipation as they awaited whatever fate lay next in store. As Jack continued to gaze at the wild stallion, an unfamiliar feeling stirred within him, one that went beyond admiration. It was a challenge. The stallion's very presence was a reminder of the untamed spirit of nature, which had always stood in contrast to the order Jack had maintained on his ranch. Though he had spent years nurturing and training his own horses, this wild creature represented a frontier he had yet to explore, a test of his skills as a rancher and a man. Jack felt a surge of determination as he considered the stallion before him. He had tamed many horses over the years, but none had ever evoked such a strong response in him. This stallion seemed to embody everything wild and free that Jack admired, but also felt he needed to assert dominance over. It was not just about claiming the land. It was about proving to himself that he could connect with this creature on some level. With every snort and paw of the ground, the stallion seemed to challenge Jack to step forward and take control. "You may be wild," Jack muttered under his breath, "but this is my home." The rancher understood that to exist alongside this horse would require both wisdom and strength. It was vital for him to establish himself as a figure of authority, a leader who could earn the respect of this magnificent beast rather than forcing it through fear. As he took a few tentative steps closer, he observed how the stallion's posture shifted. The horse raised its head high, nostrils flaring as it inhaled Jack's scent, assessing him with those intelligent brown eyes. Jack could feel the tension crackle in the air between them. It was as if they were engaged in an unspoken duel, each measuring the other's will. For a moment, Jack hesitated. He remembered stories from seasoned ranchers about encounters with wild horses. Those who charged in too quickly often found themselves on the receiving end of powerful kicks, or even worse. He didn't want to scare the stallion, but needed it to understand that he meant no harm while still maintaining his ground. Resolving himself, he began to assert his authority more deliberately. "I'm not here to hurt you," he called out softly, hoping his voice would carry reassurance. "I want to show you that I can be trusted." He took another step forward, standing tall and firm. In these wide-open spaces, filled with wildflowers and whispering grass, it felt as though the land itself held its breath in anticipation. As Jack approached, he remembered techniques he had learned about body language. He kept himself relaxed, yet confident. His hands were steady at his sides, palms open to signal peace rather than aggression. He knew that wild animals could sense emotion, and if he radiated calmness and assurance, perhaps the stallion would respond in kind. Yet with each step, Jack also felt a sense of vulnerability creeping in. What if he misread the situation? What if instinct overtook reason? Would this stallion view him as just another threat? The rancher wrestled with these thoughts while clenching his jaw in determination. At last, Jack decided to close the distance between them, bit by bit, rather than rushing forward all at once. He walked slowly and deliberately toward where the stallion stood, always keeping his movements fluid and gentle. With each passing second, it became clear that this was no ordinary encounter. It was an opportunity that could shift both their lives. The stallion watched him intently, making small movements toward Jack, but never breaking eye contact. This subtle dance felt like an invitation, an unspoken agreement that if Jack continued to approach with respect and patience, there might be hope for understanding between them. With each cautious step closer, Jack felt both exhilarated and anxious. This was more than just asserting authority. It was about finding common ground, a space where they both could coexist harmoniously. He hoped that by showing kindness rather than forcefulness, the stallion would begin to see him not as an enemy, but as someone who wanted to help. But just when Jack thought he might be breaking through the barrier between them, a sudden rustle interrupted their moment. A sound so soft yet profound that it caught both man and beast off guard. In an instant, all tension snapped away as they turned their attention towards this new mystery unfolding before them. The air around Jack and the stallion crackled with tension, filled with an energy that felt almost electric. As they stood facing each other, both man and beast held their ground, locked in a standoff that seemed to defy time itself. Jack's heart raced as he felt the weight of this encounter. This was not just any horse he was facing, but a wild animal, resilient and brave, embodying freedom in its purest form. The stallion stood tall, head held high, exuding confidence. His strong legs were firmly planted on the earth, and every muscle in his body appeared poised for action. His dark mane flowed like a shadow across his neck, accentuating his strength. At that moment, there was an unmistakable fierceness in his eyes, an intense gaze that spoke volumes about his spirited nature. It was as if the stallion could sense Jack's intentions and was challenging him to prove worthy of trust. Jack felt his breath steady as he focused on the wild eyes before him. They gleamed with intelligence and deep instinct, fiercely aware of their surroundings. In those eyes, Jack saw both beauty and danger, a reminder of the untamed wilderness that existed just beyond his carefully cultivated ranch. It made him acutely aware of the difference between their worlds, one defined by control and care, the other by raw freedom. For moments that stretched into eternity, they measured each other's strength. Jack shifted slightly, raising his hands to signal peace while never breaking eye contact. The stallion snorted softly, nostrils flaring as it took in Jack's scent once more. It was a silent dance, a test of wills where neither party blinked first. Within the depths of that piercing gaze lay curiosity intertwined with caution. Time moved slowly, and Jack could almost hear the sound of his own heartbeat thumping in his ears. With every minute detail illuminated by the soft morning light, he noted how the stallion's muscles tightened visibly under its shimmering coat, ready to spring into action at any moment if necessary. He understood that behind every stalwart stance lay the potential for flight or fight. This creature was a warrior of the wild. Both Jack and the stallion embodied fierce determination, the purity of nature met with humanity's stubbornness. In those fleeting moments, it became evident what lay at stake. Trust waited on a fragile thread as they both navigated this delicate balance. One wrong move could shatter that tension like glass. drawing in a deep breath. Jack mustered every ounce of courage within him to stand his ground against anxiety or fear. The rustle from moments earlier faded into memory as focus reigned supreme. Nothing else mattered except for this singular connection charged with energy like a living force before him. "Let's see what you're made of," Jack thought silently, urging himself forward emotionally even as he remained physically still. He knew that charging ahead would only frighten the creature further away from him. Yet every fiber of his being beckoned him to make progress amidst uncertainty, in responding to this unexplainable pull towards one another. The wild stallion willingly regarded Jack as something more than an intruder now. He flicked his ears forward and took slow steps closer. It was an acknowledgement that perhaps there was room for understanding on both sides. A shared moment suspended between their beating hearts. With trepidation bubbling beneath every surface fluttering within him, Jack began to shift his weight slightly toward approaching the stallion, both curious and wary about whether this would mark a turning point or catastrophe looming ahead. A part of him hoped eagerly for connection, while another remained guarded against any misinterpretation. And then, just when both seemed most aligned, their focuses narrowing into unyielding determination, a faint shuffling brought their attention elsewhere yet again, then plunged all tension back into reality without warning. Something skittered quietly through leaves nearby, as if lingering near, but shied away from exposure just beyond sight. A strange yet calming sound drifting through familiar surroundings. Just as the tension between Jack and the wild stallion reached its peak, a gentle sound broke through the stillness of the moment. It was soft at first, almost like a whisper carried by the breeze. The sound came from nearby, a delicate rustling as if the grass itself were sighing in relief. Jack and the stallion both turned their heads toward the source, momentarily shifting their focus from each other. In the tall grass, a small family of quail emerged, their feathers a patchwork of browns and grays that blended seamlessly with their surroundings. As they scurried about, chirping softly to one another, the world around them felt lighter. The sweet melody of their calls floated through the air, creating a soothing backdrop to an otherwise charged atmosphere. It was as if nature had intervened to ease the intensity of Jack's encounter with the stallion. The stallion's fierce gaze softened slightly as he observed the little birds. His nostrils flared as he took in their scent, curiosity peaking within him. Jack watched in fascination as the powerful creature relaxed just a bit, his muscles unclenching as his attention diverted from Jack to this unexpected source of distraction. In that instant, both man and beast found common ground through the simplicity of nature. Jack took advantage of this brief pause in tension. With the stallion's focus now elsewhere, he slowly released a breath he didn't realize he had been holding. He felt that lightness settle within him too, grateful for the calming presence of these small creatures. Nature had a way of reminding them both that life continued regardless of their standoff. It offered a momentary escape from uncertainty. As the quail hopped about playfully in search of seeds hidden within the grass, Jack felt inspired by their carefree spirit. Perhaps this was how he could approach the stallion, by embodying that same lightness and patience rather than forcefulness. He realized that just like those quail, he needed to tread softly and earn trust through gentleness instead of authority. Taking small steps back toward where he had been standing earlier, Jack kept his movements slow and deliberate. He wanted to project calmness rather than urgency. After all, it was essential to create an environment where both he and the stallion could feel safe. The stallion remained alert, yet visibly intrigued by the playful antics of the quail, who chirped and flitted about without a care in the world. Jack couldn't help but smile at how nature seemed to weave its magic even in moments filled with uncertainty. He felt buoyed by hope. Perhaps there was a way forward after all. With each passing second, Jack sensed that both he and the stallion were beginning to share a bond that transcended their initial confrontation. This gentle sound had acted as a bridge between two worlds, one steeped in wildness and freedom, and another rooted in care and responsibility. Feeling emboldened by this revelation, Jack decided to try speaking softly again, letting his voice flow gently like water. "You're safe here." The words slipped from his lips almost instinctively as he focused on conveying warmth rather than demand. "I'm here for you." The stallion flicked its ears back toward him briefly before returning its attention to watching the quail. Yet there was something different about its posture now. It seemed less tense and more curious. Encouraged by this shift, Jack continued to speak softly to the stallion while keeping an eye on those chirping birds nearby. "I know you belong out there," he said gently, motioning toward the vast open fields beyond them. "But maybe we can find a way to understand each other." As he spoke those words into existence, something deep inside Jack stirred. A realization that fostering connection required vulnerability from both sides. Just like those quail who scampered freely through grasslands, unafraid despite danger lurking nearby, perhaps this stallion could learn to trust him in time. And so they stood, man and beast, each caught up in this newfound dynamic, filled with potential hope amidst gentle sounds echoing through fields alive with life. As the soft chirping of the quail filled the air, both Jack and the stallion paused in a moment of shared curiosity. The wild stallion turned its head slightly, ears flicking toward the sound, while Jack instinctively softened his stance, allowing himself to breathe more easily. It was a rare opportunity for both to step away from the intense confrontation that had previously defined their meeting and embrace a more peaceful interaction. Jack watched as the stallion's fierce gaze shifted from him to the little birds flitting about in the grass. The tension in its muscles seemed to ease just a fraction, signaling a tentative willingness to let go of its previous wariness. The stallion pawed gently at the ground, still alert but clearly intrigued by this unexpected disturbance in their standoff. There was something about this moment that felt different. It was as if nature itself was inviting them to find common ground amid their uncertainty. In that quiet pause, Jack found himself captivated not just by the stallion's power, but also by its grace. He could see how the sunlight danced upon its coat, illuminating every ripple of muscle beneath skin stretched taut. It was as if they were both caught in a spell cast by the gentle presence of the quail, who continued to scurry about unbothered while they stood transfixed. Taking advantage of this unexpected distraction, Jack took a small step forward, hoping to engage with this extraordinary creature without breaking its newfound focus. He lowered his voice even further, allowing warmth to seep into his words as he spoke softly. "You see those little guys? They remind us that life goes on around us." His words were meant for both himself and the stallion. The powerful animal appeared to listen, eyes gleaming with intelligence as it turned its attention back toward Jack again. In that instant, Jack sensed that some invisible line had been crossed. A barrier had started to crumble between them. The wild stallion seemed less like an adversary now and more like an equal exploring what lay beyond their initial confrontation. For Jack, time slowed down. He felt acutely aware of every detail. The way the grass swayed gently in the breeze, how sunlight trickled through leaves overhead, casting dappled patterns on their surroundings. With each heartbeat, he hoped for a connection, something tangible that could replace that earlier tension with mutual respect. The stallion let out a low snort before flicking its ears back toward him once more. It stepped closer now, not in an aggressive manner, but rather out of growing curiosity sparked by Jack's soft demeanor and gentle tone. Encouraged by this shift, Jack maintained eye contact while taking another cautious step forward. In his heart, he understood. This wasn't merely a game of dominance or territory anymore. It was an opportunity for communication, grounded in understanding. As they exchanged glances filled with intrigue and caution alike, it became clear that both shared similar instincts despite being worlds apart. Jack recognized that he wasn't just an intruder intruding upon this wild creature's domain. They were navigating unfamiliar waters together. Just then, another gentle trill from one of the quail broke through their shared silence, a reminder of innocence existing even amid potential conflict. That simple sound seemed to reinforce their connection further, a beacon guiding them toward commonality rather than competition. Jack couldn't help but smile as he observed how the stallion's posture relaxed even more. There was grace in these moments unfolding before them. Moment by moment, they were becoming aware of each other. The rancher with dreams of unity and coexistence alongside these untamed spirits. He gently spread his palms outward again towards the stallion, a gesture meant to convey peace rather than command. "I'm here for you," he murmured softly once more, as if reassuring both himself and this majestic creature standing before him. With each heartbeat echoing like whispers between man and beast, amidst nature's soundtrack playing on repeat, every rustle imparting hope. They quieted together into curiosity while waiting patiently for whatever might come next. In this newfound stillness, Jack and the stallion stood in an unspoken agreement, both aware of the shifting currents between them. Jack felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. It was as if they were on the brink of something profound, an understanding that could transcend their initial confrontation. Jack took a slow, deliberate breath, feeling the sun warm his back while the gentle breeze caressed his face. He watched intently as the stallion began to lower its head slightly, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. With every movement, it became evident that the stallion was beginning to see Jack not just as a threat, but as a being worthy of acknowledgement. There was strength in this mighty creature's spirit. Yet now it appeared curious rather than defensive. "You're strong, aren't you?" Jack murmured softly, not expecting an answer, but wishing to express his admiration. The stallion lifted its head, ears pricked forward as if responding to his words. Jack couldn't help but marvel at the wild beauty before him, the powerful muscles and the grace with which it moved. It reminded him of Star, his gentle mare, who had learned to trust him over time. In that moment, Jack recognized that he too possessed strength, though it manifested differently. His strength lay in his patience, in his willingness to stand quietly and allow nature to unfold its mysteries without forcing an outcome. He understood that true connection takes time and vulnerability from both sides. With renewed resolve, Jack decided to take another small step closer, this time not out of urgency but from a place of genuine curiosity. The stallion watched him intently, nostrils flaring as it inhaled deeply, seemingly searching for reassurance in Jack's scent. The rancher remained calm, ensuring his body language conveyed nothing but peace, a stark contrast to the earlier tension that had defined their encounter. The stallion shifted its weight gently, still alert, but less poised for flight. With each passing moment, Jack realized that they were both navigating uncharted territory, a place where their worlds intersected. It was exciting and daunting all at once. Yet here, under the wide open sky, something beautiful began to blossom. As Jack watched the stallion relax more into this evolving dynamic, he thought about the similarities they shared. Both were creatures of habit shaped by their experiences. Jack by years of tending to his ranch and animals, and the stallion by its life in the wild, learning to survive against all odds. This understanding made the rancher feel lighter. Perhaps they were not so different after all. The gentle rustle of leaves above them added another note of harmony to the scene, and Jack felt as if nature conspired to fortify this emerging bond. He remembered how Star had taken her time to trust him. She had tested his patience and resolve until she finally accepted him as part of her world. Could this wild stallion do the same? With this thought, Jack raised his hands slowly again, palms facing up, a gesture of openness and acceptance. "I want to help you find your way," he said softly, hoping his intentions would resonate with the stallion. "You don't have to be alone." The stallion let out a low whinny, its powerful frame shifting closer yet again. It seemed almost hypnotic. The way they regarded one another now was rich with possibilities. They were two beings, intertwined in this intricate dance called life. One grounded in responsibility, the other rooted in freedom. Jack couldn't shake off the feeling that they were beginning to break through barriers built by fear and misunderstanding. The wild stallion appeared less wary and more intrigued. It stepped forward cautiously but resolutely, as if accepting Jack's invitation to meet halfway. For a moment, Jack felt as though time stood still around them. The chirping of quail faded into background music, while he focused entirely on this magnificent creature before him. Every heartbeat echoed hope, a silent promise that perhaps they could learn from one another. Just then, Jack noticed a glimmer of sunlight reflecting off the stallion's coat as it moved, a stark reminder of its untamed beauty and strength mingling with gentleness. In that instant, he understood that both man and beast held unique strengths. Together, they could forge a path toward understanding rather than dominance. And so they stood together in this sacred space, a wild stallion and a humble rancher, each willing to explore what lay ahead while casting aside their previous conflicts to embrace possibility. In the stillness of that moment, Jack felt a profound realization wash over him. It was clear that any approach rooted in kindness would forge a stronger connection with the stallion than one driven by force or dominance. The wild creature before him was not just an animal to be tamed. He was a spirit embodying freedom, and Jack recognized the importance of respecting that essence. Taking a moment to ground himself, Jack recalled the countless hours he had spent observing his own horses, the way they communicated with each other through body language and subtle movements. He understood that trust could only be built when both parties felt safe. The stallion, with its majestic frame and fierce independence, deserved that same respect. Jack lowered his body slightly, making himself less imposing. He spread his hands wide, palms facing upward in a gesture of openness, signaling that he came in peace. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly, letting his voice carry warmth and reassurance into the space between them. "I'm here to help you." The stallion watched him closely, nostrils flaring as it took in Jack's scent, assessing this new approach carefully. It shifted its weight again, but didn't retreat. Instead, it seemed to ponder Jack's presence as a possibility rather than an immediate threat. That shift in posture spoke volumes. There was a willingness to explore this dynamic further. Feeling emboldened by this small victory, Jack took another gentle step forward, moving slowly enough to give the stallion time to react or back away if it chose. He wanted to demonstrate that he understood the careful balance of their connection. That it wasn't about asserting power, but rather establishing mutual respect. With every deliberate movement, Jack began to share more about himself without words. His hopes for understanding and connection infused into the air around them. "I've always admired wild horses," he continued softly, hoping the stallion would sense his sincerity. "You embody strength and freedom in ways I can only dream of." The stallion's ears flicked back toward him again, as if contemplating what Jack had said. There was something about the way it stood now, less tense and more curious, that filled Jack with hope. Perhaps this wild creature could learn to trust him just as Star had done after all those months of patience. Jack thought back to those early days with Star, the moments filled with uncertainty where she had tested his resolve and boundaries. He had learned then that patience was key. There were no shortcuts when building connections with animals who thrived on instinct and experience. Each small interaction mattered, each moment a chance to foster trust. As he continued to speak gently to the stallion, he noticed how sunlight glistened off its coat, a brilliant display of color that shifted in the light like a living work of art. This majestic being represented not only independence, but also a spirit yearning for companionship on its own terms. Feeling more connected than ever before, Jack decided it was time for another gesture of kindness. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small handful of grain, an offering meant to symbolize friendship rather than ownership. Slowly extending his hand forward with the grains resting in his palm, he remained still and calm, allowing the stallion to approach on its own terms. "Here," he said softly again. "This is for you." The stallion hesitated for just a moment longer before stepping forward cautiously, drawn in by curiosity and perhaps hunger too. As it neared Jack's outstretched hand, Jack's heart raced with anticipation. This was not an act of domination, but rather an invitation toward camaraderie. With delicate movements, the stallion lowered its head toward Jack's hand, nostrils flaring as it sampled the grains within his palm. In that fleeting moment, everything felt right. The barriers that once divided them began to crumble under shared connection and mutual understanding. Jack marveled at how beautifully everything unfolded. The gentle breeze brushed past them while nature orchestrated their dance together. Two beings embracing vulnerability while exploring what lay ahead without fear or hostility. Together they stood there, rancher and stallion, each willing to choose kindness over conflict. A dance unfolding amid rustling leaves and soft chirps echoing through fields alive with possibility. As Jack stood with his palm extended, the stallion's initial hesitation began to fade. It approached slowly, nostrils flaring as it took in the scent of the grain and the warmth of Jack's presence. Jack held his breath, heart pounding with anticipation, for he knew this was a pivotal moment. Would this wild creature choose to lower its guard and accept an offering of peace? With delicate steps, the stallion edged closer until it was just within reach of Jack's hand. Jack marveled at how each sinewy muscle rippled beneath its coat as it moved, a living testament to nature's strength and beauty. For a brief moment, their eyes locked together, deep brown meeting curious blue. It was as if time stood still while the world around them faded away. Nothing mattered except for this shared connection. The stallion leaned in cautiously, its ears flicking back and forth as if listening more closely. An inner dialogue unfolding within its mind. Jack remained completely still, careful not to move suddenly or provoke a flight response. This was a dance of trust, and every movement counted. With an inquisitive snort, the stallion finally lowered its head further and extended its muzzle toward Jack's hand. When those soft lips brushed against his palm to sample the grains, sparks of exhilaration coursed through Jack's body. He felt a profound sense of vulnerability mixed with strength. It was awe-inspiring to witness such raw energy soften into curiosity. As the stallion nibbled gently on the grain, Jack couldn't help but smile in delight. This moment symbolized something greater than simple sustenance. It represented a bridge being built between their two worlds, one reflective of freedom and wild spirit, and another rooted in responsibility and care. The heart softened further within him as he noted how the stallion's entire demeanor began to shift before his eyes. With each grain consumed, it seemed less guarded and more willing to engage in this silent conversation they were beginning to craft together. There was no longer a looming threat hanging in the air. Instead, an unspoken bond started forming, one formed through patience rather than force. Jack gently stroked his fingers along the stallion's muzzle after allowing it a moment to enjoy the offering. "I won't hurt you," he whispered softly into that space between them. An affirmation of solidarity, not just for himself, but for this magnificent creature that had once viewed him warily. "We can be friends." To his surprise and delight, the stallion responded by nudging back against Jack's hand, encouraging him to continue that soft touch. This gesture felt like a promise shared. It was an acknowledgement that perhaps they could redefine their relationship based on trust rather than fear-based instinct. The rancher felt elated by the bond budding before him, like a flower breaking free from winter's grasp. With each gentle stroke along the stallion's neck, he paid homage to both animals. One domesticated who had earned praise and respect over years filled with mutual love and understanding. The other untamed, yet becoming reconciled with acceptance. Here they both stood. A rancher who understood kindness as strength, and a stallion gradually opening itself up from within. Beyond their initial conflict lay so much potential for learning from one another. As Jack brushed his fingers along that powerful frame, lit by morning sunbeams streaming through leaves overhead, his heart brimmed full with reassurance. It became clear that true companionship would require continued patience moving forward. For all involved, the wild spirit as well as humble rancher, they would navigate new territories together while honoring each other's unique journey, embedded in trust rather than control. Influenced by instinct or heritage constraints ingrained deeply within culture. Moments transitioned seamlessly into laughter-like melodies, drifting on warm sighs, echoing across vast fields, inviting fresh paths ahead. Envisioning future explorations, enriched by friendship laden with promise amidst wildflowers blooming brightly against rich green backdrop, animated joyfully across landscapes, waiting patiently for adventures yet unknown. As Jack continued to extend his palm, offering grain to the stallion, he could feel a palpable shift in the air between them, a shared moment of calm that spoke volumes. The stallion leaned in closer, its soft muzzle brushing against Jack's skin as it gingerly picked up the grains from his hand. Jack's heart swelled with joy. This simple act of trust began to weave a bond that neither of them had anticipated. After the stallion finished its small meal, it pulled back slightly but remained close, eyes glimmering with growing curiosity. Jack took this opportunity to remain still, allowing the moment to linger. He sensed that the stallion was beginning to lower its guard, intrigued by his gentle approach. In return, Jack felt a surge of respect for the wild creature, knowing that their paths were now entwined through this initial act of kindness. With a newfound sense of connection, Jack decided to speak softly again, sharing words that echoed his heart. "I know you're strong and brave," he said gently. "You have nothing to fear here." The stallion's ears twitched in response, and Jack thought he caught a glimmer of understanding in its gaze. It was as if they were beginning to communicate, not just through spoken words, but through feelings too. A language beyond words that translated into trust. Encouraged by this moment, Jack ventured to take another small step forward. Not an invasion, but rather an invitation to engage further. He extended his hand again, this time allowing his fingers to graze gently along the stallion's neck when it moved closer once more. The touch was light and reverent. He wanted the stallion to feel appreciated without being overwhelmed. The stallion stood quietly under Jack's gentle caress. There was something magical about this exchange. A moment where two species acknowledged each other's existence and strength without competition or fear. Jack couldn't help but admire the rippling muscles beneath the stallion's gleaming coat. A stunning reminder of nature's raw beauty, tempered by a spirit yearning for connection. Time seemed suspended as they remained locked in this newfound intimacy, an unspoken agreement forming between them. With each gentle stroke along the stallion's neck, Jack felt as though they transcended their roles. He was no longer just a rancher, while it was merely a wild animal. They were beings seeking companionship, learning from one another, without forcing their expectations onto each other. The sun began to rise higher in the sky, casting warm light across the landscape and illuminating their shared space. The gentle rustle of leaves continued in the background, creating an atmosphere that felt harmonious. A peaceful symphony conducted by nature itself that celebrated this moment. Jack took care not to rush. He knew that forming a lasting bond would require consistency and understanding over time. There might be days where trust would waver and challenges would arise, but standing here now filled with warmth. It felt like they were embarking on an adventure together, where possibilities bloomed like wildflowers across open fields. As he gently brushed his fingers through the stallion's mane, Jack reflected on all the lessons he had learned with Star and other animals over the years. It took time for relationships to blossom fully. Each encounter mattered and contributed to a deeper understanding of one another. Something powerful growing from mutual experiences shared amid tranquility. For every grain of kindness offered today, there would be countless memories forged moving forward. The thrill of exploration combined with the strength of vulnerability intertwined in every new interaction they would embrace. And so, with hope spreading across his heart like sunshine warming cold earth after winter's grasp, Jack embraced this moment, knowing they both held keys to unlock potential beyond what lay visible before them. With each passing second together, Jack noticed shifts within himself too. The fear once present washed away by appreciation, deepening daily connections forged through patience and sincerity. The rancher smiled softly at this wild stallion, who now looked back at him with intrigue rather than caution. In that golden sunlight, filled with promise where paths could converge, a new bond began. One built not merely on dominance or ownership, but instead crafted through shared moments of calm understanding. Together, they stood at the threshold of something extraordinary, each keenly aware that their journey lay just ahead. As Jack stood by the stallion, basking in the warmth of their newfound bond, he felt a sense of harmony enveloping them. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden light that illuminated the vibrant fields surrounding the ranch. It was as if nature itself celebrated this moment. Two beings from different worlds coming together in understanding and respect. The stallion, now less guarded, shifted its weight and stood comfortably close to Jack. In its eyes, Jack saw a spark of confidence, a willingness to explore this connection further. The initial tension that had defined their first encounter felt like a distant memory as they both settled into this shared space. where trust began to flourish. Jack knew that this was just the beginning of a transformative journey for both of them. He had always believed that animals had much to teach about patience and understanding. And here was living proof of that wisdom. The wild stallion embodied freedom, strength, and an indomitable spirit, qualities Jack admired deeply. Yet, he also recognized the beauty in vulnerability. The way the stallion had chosen to let down its guard revealed an extraordinary depth of character. As he reached out again to stroke the stallion's neck, Jack felt a rush of gratitude. This moment marked not just a personal triumph, but also a commitment to nurture their relationship moving forward. A promise to honor the stallion's wild spirit while establishing a bond rooted in care and respect. He envisioned days ahead, filled with shared adventures under the vast sky, building memories that would intertwine their lives. In that tranquil moment, surrounded by soft whispers of nature, Jack made a silent vow. He would never take this connection for granted. He would be there for the stallion as a guardian and companion, someone who respected its instincts while offering safety and understanding. Each new day would bring opportunities to learn from one another as they ventured through life's unpredictable landscape together. The gentle rustling of leaves above seemed to echo his thoughts, participating in this sacred exchange between man and beast. Jack could almost hear nature celebrating their alliance. A symphony composed of rustling grass and chirping birds, creating an atmosphere rich with possibility. Together, they stood on a threshold where adventure awaited, an open invitation to explore not just the land around them, but also each other's hearts. As days turned into weeks, their bond deepened through shared experiences, moments spent wandering through open fields where wildflowers danced underfoot and sunbeams filtered through trees like gold dust. Jack often found himself marveling at how far they had come since their first encounter. From cautious distance to mutual trust, filled with curiosity. There were challenges along the way, moments when fear threatened to creep back into their dynamic. But each time they faced those uncertainties together, whether it was navigating unfamiliar terrains or simply learning how best to communicate, their resilience shone bright like stars against a night sky. They became attuned to each other's rhythms, Jack recognizing when the stallion needed space or reassurance, while the stallion learned when it could lean into Jack's presence for comfort. Through this journey marked by patience and kindness, they discovered an unbreakable bond that transcended words. With every grain offered during each interaction or gentle touch shared beneath sunlight filtering through trees, they built trust piece by piece until it became an undeniable thread weaving them together. In time, the rancher came to see in his wild friend not just a creature embodying strength, but also kindred spirit reflecting his own desires for connection amidst life's chaos. A reminder that true companionship often blossoms through respect rather than dominance. And so it was here, amid vibrant fields filled with possibilities, that they found themselves not merely coexisting, but truly co-creating a partnership defined by love and understanding. Two souls intricately linked by stories, yet untold under endless skies, full of potential waiting patiently for adventures, yet unseen.